And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Hello there, my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. You may have heard of a game called Mr. Jack that came out back in 2006. Then its sequel came out in 2009 called Mr. Jack in New York. Then in 2010 they followed up with Mr. Jack Pocket. Well, off the heels of Gen Con 2013 is the first game of the Mr. Jack series without the name Mr. Jack in it. This is the Phantom of the Opera from Hurricane Games, or Le Fantôme de l'Opéra. Well, that was my try of French. Anyway, it's made similar to the Mr. Jack games. 2 players, ages 9 and up, plays in about 30 minutes. Does it replace any of the Mr. Jack games? How similar is it? How different is it? Is it worth having it if you have Mr. Jack or any of them? Stay tuned, let's check it out and find out. In the Phantom of the Opera, there is a star of the show called La Carlotta. That's her right there. Strange things have been happening. Chandeliers have been falling. She's been hearing voices. Things have been scaring her. And if she gets scared too much, for too often, for too long, she will then flee all the way to the exit and leave the show that's supposed to be in Paris and leave it for Milan. And so how the game's played is one person is the investigator, and they are trying to find which of these 8 characters is the Phantom that's doing all these things to try to scare her away. So at the beginning of the game, what will happen is there's a card here for each of the 8 people. At the beginning of the game, the person who is playing the Phantom will take one of these cards and they will turn it over and see which person they are. In this case, they are Christine. That is one of the 8 characters that they are disguised as. The Phantom is disguised as Christine the whole game, and this is secret. Only they see this. They don't let the other players see this. They keep it face down the whole game, and they know that they are now Christine. Notice that at the beginning of the game, the La Carlotta here starts in the middle here. And this is just by design for a balanced game. Now, for example, if the Phantom is a weaker player than the investigator, she could start even all the way up to here or any place in between, which makes it easier. And if the investigator is the weaker player, they can move her back all the way up to there or any place in between to adjust the difficulty of this. I should also note that in this setup, it's completely random. Every time you set the game up, each of these characters get randomly placed around these outside rooms, leaving these 2 inside rooms clear, but it's a random setup every game. Now the way a round works is there's 8 of these character cards, 1 for each of them in the game, and 4 of them will be randomly placed and flipped up as so. And then what happens is in the first round, the investigator will go first, and they will get to choose one of these characters to use. Then the Phantom will get to choose 2 of them, and then the investigator will get to choose the last one remaining. So in the first round, that's how the game starts. Now let's talk a little bit about the characters and how they move. Now each of the characters, when it's their turn to use their movement, can move up to the amount of spaces of people that are in their room with them. So in the case of Meg, and everybody actually starting the game, everyone's by themselves. So if looking at the Meg card here, she can move 1, because there's only one person in her room, it's herself, and her move is optional, where she's the only one that can use any of these pink secret staircases and secret places to go through. So Meg could move 1, she could move here, going through this room, or she could use the secret staircase to go here, or she could use the secret staircase to go all the way up here. She cannot go through the padlock. Nobody can go through the padlock at any time, and so that's essentially Meg's movement and her special ability. Now let's look at Joseph's. So that would have been the investigator's move, and now the Phantom would get to do 2 people's moves in a row. And so let's say he picks Joseph here, and what his special movement is, well, first of all, of course, he can move just 1 if he wants. He has to move 1, so let's say he moves up here. And now his special movement is he gets to move the blackout light. Now the blackout light allows that whatever room that he places this in to be completely blacked out. We'll talk about what that means in just a moment. And so let's say he puts it over here with these 2. Okay, and now it's again the Phantom's turn to do the second person. Let's say he does Raoul. And Raoul, again, he's alone, so he gets to move 1. Let's say he moves over here. and he gets to look at an alibi card. So the alibi card is essentially a stack of cards that has some characters in there, and he's going to take this and look at it. And now it's the Phantom who'd be opening this card up, and he sees it's Joseph, and he's just going to keep it face down. That's essentially, he now knows that the investigator, if he gets an alibi card later, that's not the card that he will ever pull. So he gets, it's kind of hiding information. Now there are some of these cards, there's 3 of them I believe, that have a Phantom on them. If the Phantom card's drawn from the cards of the alibi cards there, if it's the Phantom who pulled it, they move La Carlotta 1 closer to the exit. If it's the investigator's turn when they pull that alibi card, it's the Phantom, it moves back 1 further away from the exit. So these alibi cards can really help whoever's using them. Now that is the end of the Phantom's turn, and now the last person that hasn't been used yet gets to be used by the investigator. Because remember, we went investigator, got 1, then the Phantom did 2, and then the investigator does the last round. And in this case, we'll look at Moncarmen. So M. Moncarmen is this guy here, and he, let's see, he can move again 1. So he can go, let's see, here. And his special ability allows him, if he's in a room with somebody else, he can push them away to a different room. So let's say actually he moved here. He has the option to move everybody. He has to move either none or all of them, and he can move them. He can move them both away here, he can move them both away here, or he can move 1 here and 1 there. Everyone's frightened by him. So that's 4 of the characters, and that would be the end of the round. Now at the end of this round, what would happen is, essentially, we would find out and ask the question, can the Phantom appear? So let's talk a little bit about how the Phantom appears and how that plays into the whole strategy of the game. The Phantom can appear if he's alone, if he or she is alone, because he can act or she can act without anybody catching them, is the most part. So each one of these people that is alone could appear as the Phantom. Now, anytime normally, if there's more than 1 person in a room, none of these people could appear if they were the Phantom, because they are together and somebody else would see them doing something bad, so the Phantom doesn't do that. So anytime there's multiple people in the room, the Phantom cannot appear, and anytime they're alone, the Phantom can't appear. There's an exception. This is the blackout token that was placed here earlier, and what the blackout token does is, though, even if there's multiple people in the room is dark, so the Phantom can't appear. So in this case, all these people could be the Phantom and could appear, and since the blackout token is here, all 3 of these people could appear. So in this case, everyone could be the Phantom and everybody could appear. So the answer is yes, the Phantom could appear, and in this case nobody else sort of gets turned over because everybody could appear. So in this case, the Phantom would get to move 1 because the Phantom could appear, plus 1 for every suspect that is not turned over. So we have 8 characters, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That would have been a huge turn for the Phantom. So let's run through the other 4 characters. Now as you can see, we flipped the turn order card over to the blue side, which essentially everything is pretty much the same, except in this time the Phantom gets to go first, then the investigator gets to go 2 in a row, and then the Phantom gets the last choice. So let's say it's the Phantom's choice, and he takes Christine, and he gets to move her 1 because there's no one there, so he moves her here. Now Christine's power is, when she's in a room, she can attract all the people to her. So let's say if this guy was here and these guys were here, she could attract everybody into the same room as her. Now she either has to attract all the characters from all adjacent rooms or none. So in this case, she attracted all of them to her because that's her special ability. Now the investigator will get 2 of them. So let's look at Mr. Richard, the purple one. And in this case, he can, now his movement, there's 4 people in this room. So he could actually move up to 4 places. He could go 1 and just stop, or he could go 2, or he could go 3, or he could go 4. It's up to him. Anywhere from 1 to 4 would be his normal movement. Or his special ability is he could swap with somebody else. Well, and in this case, let's say he moves twice. Let's just say he moves over here. Okay, and that's his movement. His movement is optional. His special power is optional. He didn't choose to do it. If he wanted to, he could have just swapped with somebody else, just like the original Mr. Jack game. And now the investigator gets 1 more move, and let's say he uses the Persian, and that's to this gentleman right here. Again, in this case, he gets to move just 1. So he could move here or here because he's alone. Now let's just say he started his turn here. His special ability is he can take one person with him, and he can drop them off on the way or take them all with him. So in this case, let's say there were these two here. He can move up to two spaces because there's two people in the room, and he can take somebody with him, either both all the way, or he could go one, drop this person off, and go two. He could also just stay there as well because he can move up to two. So this gives him some flexibility there. So let's say he just, let's just say he moved right there and stayed there. And then the Phantom is going to get the last move, and they're going to use Madame Geary, and that's the blue piece here. And what their special, now again, they could just move one, but their special movement is before or after their movement, she can move the lock anywhere. So she could say, I'm going to move this up here, and I guess I'll move over here. Now again, after that's done, the questions asked is, can the Phantom appear? And in this case, the Phantom cannot appear, because if you remember, the Phantom was Christine, which is this piece here. The Phantom cannot appear because she is with other people, and the Phantom would never appear when other people are there, and because she might get caught. So she cannot appear. The Phantom cannot appear. So what happens is everybody that can appear gets flipped over. So this guy could appear, he gets flipped over, she could appear, and he could appear. Since all these other people could possibly not appear, the Phantom is one of those. Now, so the question asks, so now that we flip those over, now we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of them are still suspects. So this would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And since the Phantom cannot appear, it just stays there. Anytime the Phantom can appear at the end of the round, you get one more move towards the end. And essentially that's how it's played over and over. The end of the game happens if before the last person or the Phantom is revealed, if she gets to the exit, the Phantom wins. If the investigator is able to get all the other people turned over, with the only person left being the actual Phantom before she gets to the end, the investigator wins. Alright, well there's Phantom of the Opera. So what do I think? Well, if you've seen my videos before, you know I love deduction games. This has a deduction element in it. And I am a big fan of the Mr. Jack series. So I like this game. I really like this game. I'll almost go on to say I pretty much love this game. Now, for the people, there's two different groups out there. People that have not yet purchased a Mr. Jack game at all, or maybe you've even heard of them before. And then you got the other crew of people that have at least one of the Mr. Jack games. For the people that don't have any or have never heard of it, if this game seems interesting to you, you could get this game and not worry about any of the previous ones. Meaning you'll probably buy one of those or two of them later after you've played this if you really do like it, but you don't need to have any of the previous ones to really pick up on it quick or to understand it. So don't worry about the past stuff. If you really like it, you'll probably buy it. For the people that already have it, the Mr. Jack series has done a great job of whenever they come out with a new version, it's different enough that it feels different. Meaning it never replaces any of the other games, but it's similar enough that it still feels like a Mr. Jack game. And they did the same thing with this, but let me tell you what I really like about it. The random setup, it's very similar to Mr. Jack Pocket, which is my favorite of the series actually until this. And so random setup's great because in the original Mr. Jack, it felt a little samey after many plays where the board set up the same way and it felt a little samey. This takes that and throws it out of the water. Random setup, I love that. Second, one of my other biggest complaints with the original Mr. Jack is that it was unbalanced a little bit, about 60 to 40. The statistics show that the investigators would win. Now with this really cool element, that whole sliding where you can change the difficulty depending on who you're playing with. So if you're playing with a beginner, you can easily ratchet the difficulty one way to the other to make it a more balanced game. And I love that because with the other games, if you wanted to teach somebody that, you'd almost have to like throw the game or you'd crush them because you know the game and the character so well. Where this, you could really slide that. You could play with a beginner and still have it be a tight game even though you're trying. Boom. Even if it's just those two reasons, this is by far my favorite version of all the Mr. Jack games. Slightly ahead of Mr. Jack Pocket, which I still love a lot. So I do love this game. I think it's the best one of the series because of those two versions. Now a lot of it will feel the same-ish. You know, the red character that's not Sherlock Holmes, he does the same thing, alibi card. The purple guy, he does, you know, the switch and move. Some of them are going to feel very similar. Some of them are going to be new. But, you know, it's that moving around that adds that differentness. And I just love it. It's a great game. It's a great addition to the Mr. Jack series. It's my favorite. If you liked any of the Mr. Jack games, you've got to try this one out. And if you haven't, this might be the only one you need. Although if you like it, you'll probably own them all like me. Anyway, check it out. It's Asmodee and Hurricane Games produced this, and it's a great version of the Mr. Jack series.
So much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.